Have 5, 4, 3, and we're back.
And we're back. And we're back. Hold on a sec here. We may have to do it again. I just want to make sure I'm not I think I'm blurring the background. No. Okay. Okay.
All right.
Let me just try it again.
All right, we'll have to keep both of these. You have to save both of these things and put it at the end.
There's lots of bloopers. Okay. Uh
Thank you.
5, 4, 3.
And we're back.
And we're back. And we're back. It's good to be in the same room with you again.
Yeah.
Happy reading week, everyone. And so we're here today to talk about season one of
Severance.
Severance, which is definitely sci-fi.
Yeah.
And what else are we here to talk about?
Tetris.
Tetris. We watched Tetris, which
Tet
is a relatively OG video game, maybe
hmm
G2 video game.
I would say definitely original-ish. Like
Yes,
there were like it
80,
wasn't Pong levels, but
yeah,
like it was still
yeah, late 80s.
yeah.
And then anything else you want to?
Introducing you to a series that
Okay.
I greatly enjoy.
Okay, so well, let's dive right into Severance. I don't know
Severance.
what, when I first read it, I was like, I don't know why I thought it was going to be more of a comedy or something. Like I just, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah, like
I don't know what I thought it was, but
yeah, like how, this first episode I felt was hard to get into.
yeah, I mean, I was thinking even before I started, like the reason I didn't watch it
Hmm.
was because
You were told that, or you thought it was a
no, yeah,
comedy.
I mean, whatever, right? Like
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like I don't, it's hard now to remember what I thought it was, but I
Mhm.
didn't think it was.
Severance. What like
Yeah,
what
I
you?
didn't. I
What
don't
it?
know. I mean, I guess
Yeah,
I'm
like
not
I
really
wasn't
sure.
sure
And
personally
yeah,
either. Like I kind of thought it was more of a comedy, even though watching it, it's really it's not a
well,
comedy.
it's a bleak, it's
It's a bleak.
a bleak comedy, let's say,
Yeah,
or
yeah, it's
whatever.
yeah,
But then I heard that a lot of people liked it, and so
yeah, yeah.
and and that it had Christopher Walken, who's he's very famous, like dry humor guy. He's
He's
the
in
art decorator. You know what I mean?
right, and also there is the person from Parks and Rec. I forget his name.
Uh,
The
yeah,
main character. Yeah.
tor, tor, tor,
Mhm.
Tortu. His last name is like Tortu. Anyways,
Yeah.
we'll do a better job of being
Oh,
prepped
yeah,
these sessions.
maybe you could add that in
Yeah,
post, just a picture
I'll
of
do what you do and look something up in the middle of it.
but yeah, I gotta say, I enjoyed it. I definitely enjoyed it. It's an interesting series. A lot of it's got a lot of questions that
Yeah.
aren't answered by season. Some are answered, not all of them by end of season one. Um, it's definitely a good show. Definitely, it's not a bad show. It's a really good show. Really good.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it's the Silo quality, but that's a hard bar to reach. I
Yeah.
think forever now we've been so silo pilled that
Yeah, I mean, I like Solid. I'm not going to say it's the only thing I ever want to watch again
right.
forever or whatever. I just mean it was,
Interesting. It was
yeah, I mean,
it had interesting ideas and like
y-
ideas that I don't think have really been explored much or
right.
too often.
But, like Severance, what's good about Severance, to your point, perhaps, is that like the Silo, there's mysteries and
Hmm.
it gets slowly revealed,
Yeah,
right?
slowly.
It's not like what's going to happen, or it's like they're chasing a bad guy
No,
and a few little things happen along the way. The whole thing
yeah.
is like you're trying to figure out like what do they know outside and what's going on
Yeah,
and
why what are they there's
and clearly like what the fuck are they doing,
yeah,
right?
what
Like
would need you to literally have a split personality wholly existent because of your work?
well,
Like what?
not I mean not just that. What I mean is that what is it that they do,
Yeah, no,
right?
that's what I mean. Like what purpose, what work do you have that not only you need to have a whole new person from your consciousness made so that you can remember what, but it's also like like put through a word scrambler and like a data scrambler, so it's only
Right.
you're only seeing
But I
numbers.
mean,
Look,
I
what
mean,
the hell are you working on?
yeah, but I mean, it's like they must be just be a science experiment, right? They're not really, that company doesn't, like what those people are working on isn't real, is how I feel about it, right?
Maybe.
Like it's
Here's
just a science experiment to see how they're just testing this split personality thing, you know?
maybe, but okay. There's a lot of concepts that Severance goes through.
Hmm.
Here are some of them. I'd say ideas are like the soul and what it is,
Right.
and who you are as opposed like as all of your life adding up to what you are now versus who you are if you had the knowledge but no memory of it. Like all the severed people
Right.
have knowledge of how to speak, how to write, how to type, how to walk, all that stuff.
Right. Yeah,
But they have
interesting.
so they have the human requirements of
Hmm.
knowing things, but they
It's
have
true.
no memory. They have their whole
Yeah.
personality is in the severed world.
Yeah.
It's only there and nothing else.
Yeah.
And also like the soul, like if there's a lot of religious ideology in Severance. There's a lot of talks of like life, death, God, hell, that kind of stuff. And it's like interposed of like, are these two beings in one body now because that they're a severed entity?
Right.
Or is it just one? There's also things like more political, like in a lot of office related worlds like this kind of stuff, you'd think like they'd be crunching the numbers to get bathroom privileges or stuff. And there is some of that of like, like the waffle party or like
Right.
or bobbing or not bobbing, but like small perks like thumb twist
Right.
finger
Yeah.
traps. Like there is that, but it's not like they're being worked to the bone because
Right.
it's more of almost
Oh,
like
it's
a
definitely
collect it's I'd say it's more like workers, like collectivist kind of thing. You may disagree, but to me, because it's not, they're working for a family, and that's literally kind of what they've made it up.
right. Well, I forget that. Like they're working for a big corporation, but then there's the whole culty family
Yeah,
kind of personality,
it's
you
less
know.
capital. It's definitely capitalist, but I'd say it's less hard capitalist and more like you're
Well, I
working.
mean, I think a lot of companies try and create, especially when they're become ginormous, they're trying to create some kind of, how do you get people to give a shit about the
Right.
company? And so these people have this whole like family lore,
Yeah,
whatever it
all of
is, and
like here, for example, is
right.
a deified being
Right.
in
And
Lumen.
for some of them, it was definitely, right? Some of them
Yeah,
are ready to sacrifice their whole life and
yeah,
their everything for them.
and
But
others
I mean,
aren't, and
right. I mean, what I've enjoyed in the first season is the kind of like mystery, like there's oddities,
yeah.
right? But then, and, then there's the woman who was pregnant and she was clearly severed in some way outside, right? Like there was they met at she had a baby, she was having a baby or something, and she doesn't remember. She was like the
Oh, I
wife
may have
wife
forgotten
of a
that. Right,
politician or something, like,
yeah. Here, that's another thing. Like the ethics of Severance. Like, is it at all ethical to literally create a person for what would be to them like a short amount of time for them because like they're working for years, but they're only awake for like from 9 to 5 basically,
hmm
and like in between those times, it's a snap of the finger for them, like to them, they get out of the elevator, they work, they go back into the
I
elevator,
think
and then
that's
they go back.
I think
What would that be? That'd be horrifying to
Well,
experience.
I think you were just touching on like one of the scenes that really stands out, right? Which is uh and I'm blanking on her name now, but the main female character, when she's trying to sort of escape, right? Like
Yeah,
she's rebelling in there. It's also interesting to watch that stuff, right? Like
yeah,
it's about fighting back, and she gets into the elevator. She's like, "That's it, I'm gone." And then the elevator opens up, and she's like, "What?" And she's like in different clothes, and she's back again,
yeah,
or whatever.
yeah. Or also I think in the first episode she asked, "Is this hell?"
Right.
And honestly, you can't blame her because
Yeah.
for her experience, she has no memories of anything except certain things, like, how to walk, and also, I think, mountains. But she doesn't remember her mother or anything like that. She does, though, know that she has to work or else she'll be punished.
Right.
And she can't end
That
herself because they'll stop her. So
right.
I don't think I'd last that. I think I would go insane because, like, she's stuck in a blank office basically with barely anything to do except work and work.
But they're so interested in the outside, right? Like they
Mhm.
start to become interested. I mean, some of them do and some of them don't, right? Some of them obviously like that
Right.
are okay there, and some of them are really, trying to figure out what's going on or how to get out, or they're
Right.
anyways, that's
And like in the penultimate episodes, like all that stuff happens because characters get to experience moment like one forget his name, but one of the characters momentarily gets to experience what his outie has. Oh
what
yeah, the innies and out. Like
yeah.
he gets to learn that, oh,
Well, he has a
I have a
kid.
kid.
Yeah. So he wakes up and it's so wacky, kind of.
And then like he gets put back in and then he attacks Mr. Milchick.
Yeah.
And honestly, I can't blame the characters for anything they do because they are they are existent only because a company had information that they wanted private, so private in fact that they had to literally put steps, 1,000 steps to make sure that everything that was in the severed floor does not leave the severed floor.
It's interesting. People have alluded to that. I got the sense more that, well, especially, right, when um in the I don't know if it was the penultimate episode or the last episode of the season, that when they wake up, I guess it must have been the last
Yeah,
episode,
last episode.
when they wake up, right? They figure out that they can wake themselves up, and they do that, and Helly is at you realize that she's connected to the family somehow, and she's at this big gala, right?
Hmm.
And um that, like, it's like that this thing is about um kind of like control, like, I get the sense more that this is almost like a pharmaceutical company or something, you know what I mean? It's not pharmaceutical, but like, to me
Maybe.
it's less that like, I felt that it's less that the information what they're doing is secret, and it's more that, like, they are the science experiment. You know what I mean? On
Maybe.
trying to figure out whether this thing can work or not. You know what
Right.
I mean? Um,
So yeah, they're like lab rats.
kind of, yeah,
And there's also the ideas of like messing with the mind as well. Like that's the
right,
whole point of like
yeah,
perception. It's hard to, what you see, what could actually be there. Like one of the characters keeps on flashing to this dark like ink, like black ink and like a dark hallway or something. And like we're trying to figure like what's going on with this.
right.
And like again, is it moral to, personally, to me, it's not moral to literally make a copy of someone who's only going to experience moments, brief moments, and never have certain experiences like sleep. None of the characters sleep except
Right.
on like rare occasions, and then they get punished for that.
Right. I think, and it's interesting that is the any folks, it becomes like they're slaves, right? Like they're
No, yeah, no, they are.
captives of their other person. And at the end, towards the end of season one, it's kind of like, do they have rights? Kind of,
Yeah,
like people are upset, people are, all that sort of
yeah,
stuff.
like literally, like they're. I think they're even worse than slaves because slaves can die. These guys can't. They
Right,
are in a sterile, harmless room where
right.
they
They're
work
not,
and work, and
right.
they don't have experiences like sleeping. They barely eat. Like they're sometimes rewarded with food.
Right. And then there's the whole like uh whatever it is, lunchroom or whatever, right? Like the punishment
Yeah,
stuff, right? And so that's kind of crazy, right? Like they go through this punishment stuff
right. The
and
break room.
the
Yeah,
break room, yeah, and whether they're they're rewarded with this weird like your Audi is a really nice person. Your Audi is kind to animals.
yeah.
You
Your
know?
Audi won a trophy, like,
Yeah,
but they can't ask questions or else
right.
they'll get punished for that as well. Like
Yeah,
every and they can't even like other than like the few people they sometimes interact with, like Milchick or like, certain characters, they don't get to interact with anyone else.
yeah.
Like they don't get to interact with other departments because they're separate for some reason. They don't get to interact with other like higher ups unless they're shown to be breaking and then like, okay, this is gonna come out of your pay. But you can have like 20 minutes with a
Right.
person that will tell you nice things, but you can't show emotion at all or you get punished, and you can't ask questions or you get
Yeah,
punished. Like,
yeah.
who would want to be in that experience? I can understand why there's like so many like, suicide proof stuff because like, yeah, I'd imagine people would try this stuff constantly because would you want to be in that situation? I definitely would not want to.
Yeah, it's a I think that's the thing is for some people that they realize now they've trapped themselves in a terrible like that part is a kind of hellish
Yeah,
for some of them, not all of them, but for some.
some of them are using it as a way to escape, or their Audi is. But also, yeah, no, like these characters, and if they get fired or, age out of the program,
It's not clear what happens to them though, right? At least in the first season.
yeah, well, to me at least, it's that like to them, it's probably like death. Or at least, like, if something happens to their Audi, then they die as well. But their last experience would be them walking into an elevator and death.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess that's the question. Are they really a person sort of or
yeah,
not, right? Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
I don't think I if a company like that did that and it was discovered, that company would be removed by no one would want to work because they made people who have no experience on the outside world and live
But
only
they
as
don't,
long as
well,
their
that's what I
Audi
mean. But
does.
right. But they're not really people. It's like a split personality. I understand
I
that they're a part of a person, and if that part is suffering, do they have rights or whatever? And
y-
that's a fair question, but it's not like they're not an entirely different person,
I
right? They're
would okay, that is true. They technically are still that person with
right.
same interests ish, but I would say that they are still a person because like
Well,
they
it's like
have
can't you
like for example, um one of the characters has a relationship with their innie has a relationship with another innie, and their outie has a relationship as well.
right.
And like so it is possible that personally I would still consider them a different person. It's kind of like a sort of a twin thing where like
Right.
they do share the same different interests, but they still are different people.
right.
with
I don't think of them so much as different people, but I think
they are still people.
I don't think of them as being two different people. I just don't. But
Mm.
I do see that like
The moral
you
in it.
yeah, like because you've condemned like this person, a portion of their time or whatever is condemned to something they don't have control over, you
Yeah,
know?
they don't get
So,
any human experiences, love, joy, happiness, anything like that.
well, they don't have any agency, right? They don't have any agency to change things if they don't want, if they don't like it or what. They can't quit, they can't do this, they
Yeah,
can't
no,
do that, right?
they
So,
have no control over
yeah,
themselves.
yeah,
They are there as long as their Audi wants them to.
yeah.
And if their Audi doesn't want that job, they can leave, but then they basically killed that side
Right.
of them.
Well, I haven't seen that part of the company. Maybe that exists, but in season one, it's not clear how you can leave or if you can leave or anything like that, you
Right, like
know?
I'm doing my I don't think I've spoiled anything.
Yeah.
But yeah, from a season one perspective, this is a fate sort of worse than death.
It's a definite nightmare. Definite
I would
nightmare.
not want to be in that.
Yeah. So that's season one. Season two is out. I don't know if it's has it finished already?
I think there's two more upcoming episodes,
Right.
two, three,
Okay.
but it's a I
Okay.
really
Okay. So you watched some of season two. I'm going to catch up on season
yeah
two and then we can
yeah
chat about that next time. So yesterday we also watched Tetris. Tetris was a big game from the 80s,
hmm
still when video was relatively new. It's part business, you know, part gamer history and
yeah
lore, part business
and part
and
technology as well.
part
Definitely
technology
technology,
and just and
sociopolitical
yeah, just a really interesting time. It takes place sort of 1987, 88, 89. Uh,
before the fall of the
and
USSR.
and up to and through the fall of the USSR. The game was invented in Russia and I believe in Russia and you know comes to the West. But you know, there's still questions about who has the
Yeah,
rights to it, and so it's kind of this weird, you know, not quite spy, but this Cold War back and forth,
yeah,
and
and
but
often
all
miscommunications as well throughout
yeah,
the.
but also what's interesting is the beginning of technology and computers where like a computer and a game box, no one realized they were different or a handheld
Right,
game, like looking at rights for a game like Tetris across these different platforms.
right, yeah,
And there's also for those of us who are old enough to remember, it kind of surprised me that Robert Maxwell, who was a rich guy from the 80s, and was involved in this as his empire was collapsing in the 80s. He ended up killing himself probably off his yacht because he had kind of faked his business and all that sort of stuff. But
and
it's
a lot
just
of debt and stuff.
yeah, and it's just interesting that
Yeah.
his business is involved in this as well.
Yeah. And
So
back touching on that technology side, like we see how, they're, trying to get the rights for like PC, the blocky PC and
right.
like old and like, and also there's talked about like a PC versus a computer, I think. Like one's
Right. Yeah, that's what I was saying
and yeah
about
and
different platforms
right.
that they were so kind of new that people didn't realize there would be different
Right. And
platforms,
then there's
right?
also like they're like, discussing like percentage of arcades,
Right.
like
That the arcade at that time, like they were just inventing the Game Boy
oh well, actually
and
yeah, we'll get to touch that. But yeah, like the arcade like physical like, arcade zones and stuff. And then we even see at one point like the like they even say like sign this NDA because you're one of like 12
well
people who are about to see this thing.
that's you know like so many things Gen X it was kind of like the birth the start of so much, right? Like
Yeah.
there was no internet then, not commercial
Right.
internet, and you know like yeah we get a scene of this guy, only 10 people have ever seen the Game Boy or whatever,
Mhm.
right? And so, it's like the birth of a handheld video game, which I guess aren't that big anymore, although maybe the Switch is kind of handheld, but
Yeah, there are a few
yeah,
things, but
yeah. I mean, it's
it's
jumped
yeah,
onto
no,
phones and stuff,
it's changed. Like I forget, like there's
but
like
but uh,
the
but
Game
to
Boy, like the Game Boy had like what, like 8,000
eight 8K
8K,
of memory. Yeah.
which
Uh, but it's also that they were battling over arcade rights,
mhm,
right? Like where you put coins into a physical machine at a physical location, not even in your own. Like people were still playing games in arcades, and that was a
yeah,
moneymaker. So it's like you've got arcades are still around, you've got the Russia's still around, and it's this transition from arcades to Game Boys and
mhm.
from like USSR to Russia all happening kind of at the same time. This
Right.
trend,
Yeah, like the change of the war, like a lot of change was happening then.
yeah, a
Just
lot of
like
change in the world
yeah.
and all this computer kind
Right.
of
Yeah,
yeah.
like technology, as someone who's from technology era of now, like I'm used to a lot of modernization. Like our phones have more processing powers than an entire arcade room,
Right.
like our like the ability to do things technologically speaking was very, very different then versus now. And it's interesting to see
Well,
that.
the even the phones, right? Like when
Yeah,
they were saying they couldn't make long distance calls, even in the movie, the American guy, or UK or whatever he was, Dutch American
yeah, like
living in,
a bunch of
he was shocked that you couldn't make a long distance call. You could only make a long distance call from a government building, and
right.
it was just it's actually a great kind of look at a period of time between and the technological differences
Right.
between Russia at the time and the West, just the birth and the dawn of the Game Boy and you know what I mean,
Right.
like this
Yeah.
all these different technologies was kind of like just a very interesting moment and
Hmm.
in time that it
It's
takes place. So anyways, good movie,
yeah, very,
very
very,
you know
very
in
good movie,
fun
really.
movie, good little piece of history
Yeah,
and whatnot.
I really enjoy the kind of tech aspect of it. It's
Yeah.
the interesting to see the evolution and like talking about how like the I forget how many units Tetris sold, but like it was like like a million or something or like
It was
plus.
in the millions. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and it's interesting to see that like that when this movie was made, that was like this Tetris is the most sold game, and I decided to look up the most sold games. And like, the top one is, for example, Minecraft with 300 million copies
Mm.
sold.
Huh.
But
It's
yeah, it's interesting to see. It's a great movie. Highly
yeah.
recommend.
Yeah. Yeah, it is good. All right. And anything else you wanted to chat about
With
today?
our limited time,
Yeah.
I would greatly enjoy. I'm gonna be trying to introduce you to the world of the SCP Foundation.
Okay.
It's a when you're used to like like science fiction and that kind of stuff, you're used to a writer or writers writing a series, like different groups being paid to make stories and stuff
Hmm.
set in one world. The SCP Foundation is different because anyone can write an SCP,
Right.
and because of that, anyone
Is
has the ability to write their own story, and thus continuity in the SCP Foundation is story by story or series by series.
and so it's like a framework for telling stories around a certain kind of like there's a world
Yeah,
framework
it's the
and
human world, but the Foundation, the SCP Foundation, works to contain anomalous entities, items, events from the world, so the world never knows any of this stuff happens, you
uh,
know?
and people it's kind of like fan fiction or whatever, right?
Yeah, yeah,
People write things and
it's a really
is it all written or is there videos or
there's a multitude of medias.
uh
The stories are written, but they're amazing people who I'm gonna send you some videos
yeah.
of who will, read the stories and like talk about it and like, some people animate this stuff and it's really awesome stuff. And it's just it's It's horror on a multitude of different scales. Some are horrifying, some are cute, some are make you cry. They're all amazing, and I am very excited to.
Okay, well, I look forward to seeing some, and we'll hopefully we'll get a chance to talk about that
Yeah,
on the next episode. All
yeah.
right. Well, thanks for joining us, and
Hmm.
keep
Subscribe.
subscribing, keep those questions coming in,
Yeah,
and we'll see you soon.
yeah.
Until the next time.
Until we meet again.
Until we meet again.